On behalf of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, welcome everyone to our fall quarter webinar, Beans, Beans, Good for Your Heart and Your Bottom Line.
Got it.
Today we will hear from 4 speakers. Jessie Hunter is a dietitian at USA Dry Pea and Lentil Council and the Director of Domestic Marketing at the American Pulse Association. She will start us off today, and my name is Maggie Neola. I'm a dietitian at the Physicians Committee. I will address our second objective today. Lastly, Denise Agati, Food Service Director at Ithaca City School District, and Amy Hamlin, Executive Director at Coalition for Healthy School Food, are professional partners, and together they will conclude our webinar. These are our objectives today. We will discuss why pulses, that is dried beans, lentils, chickpeas, and dried peas, are healthful and how to best incorporate them as a meat alternate. We hope to inspire you to make a worthy change to your menu. Without further ado, let's turn our attention to the first speaker, Jessie Hunter.
Thank you, Maggie. Thanks for the introduction. As you can see here, we have a brand for pulses, as you introduced, as dry beans, peas, lentils, chickpeas. And I represent the growers and food manufacturers, processors, exporters of pulses in the U.S. You might be asking, as we already explained, what are pulses? But I get the question sometimes, did we make that word up, or where does that come from? And it actually comes from the Latin word pulse, that means thick soup or pottage. And that's probably how most of you have been introduced to pulses and enjoy pulses. But there's many different ways to eat pulses. You can see here the most common types grown in the U.S. are, as we said, dry beans, and there's a wide variety of different types of beans, shapes and colors and textures, as well as chickpeas, also known as garbanzo beans, the same thing, lentils, there's several different types of lentils, and dry peas. So here's just how pulses relate to the family of legumes. Legumes are a botanical category, really. And what makes a legume is that the seeds are enclosed in the pods and they all fix nitrogen in the soil. Now, pulses are legumes, but not all legumes are pulses. So you can see here the pulses are the ones in red, and what makes them different than other legumes is that they're harvested dry and they're low in oil. So some other common legumes I'm sure that you know and love are soy and peanuts, but they are not pulses because they're high in oil. And then you have the fresh beans and peas. Now, we'll talk about how they fit into the dietary guidelines and the school lunch program here in a minute, but I wanted to give you that perspective on how pulses are slightly different than other types of legumes. So pulses, because they're able to fix nitrogen in the soil, they are a more sustainable food crop. They're nutritious, affordable, and delicious. Pulses are very high in protein, and if you think about 1/2 cup serving of lentils, it has double the protein of that same 1/2 cup cooked of quinoa, so both cooked. They're an excellent source of fiber. All pulses, they might have slight variation, but on average, they're going to have 4 times the amount of fiber in a 1/2 cup serving than a 1/2 cup of cooked brown rice. Some of the pulses that are richer, darker, brighter colors, such as cranberry beans or dark red kidneys, have high amounts of antioxidants. And they're also rich in vitamins and minerals. Some of the most notable ones are the iron. A serving of black beans has 1.5 times the amount of iron in a 3-ounce serving of steak, which is technically the serving size, but most people don't stop there. And then a good source of potassium and folate as well. It's also, there's more, as we do more research on what the components of different pulses are, we see that they're a pretty good source of choline as well. So they're also gluten-free, and if you're taken and cooked from the dry form, they're going to be sodium-free and cholesterol-free. So they're also sustainable, and how they fit into a sustainable food system. They're as a rotation crop. And in the U.S., most of the pulses that you'll see in terms of the biggest amount of acreage are coming from the northern tier states. such as Montana, North Dakota, and that's for peas and lentils. And they're worked into rotation with an oil crop and a grain, such as wheat. Other pulses are grown in Michigan and Nebraska, Colorado, California, Texas. So you can find a different type of pulse for a different type of environment. But one of the great features of pulses, as I already mentioned, was that it can fix its own nitrogen in the soil, which means you can reduce the amount of fertilizer that you put into the system. And that's a big plus for growers. Additionally, it's drought tolerant and more frost hardy than other crops. And put those together and it comes up with the low carbon footprint, one of the lowest carbon footprint foods out there. Additionally, farmers love to include pulses into their rotation because of these features and that they improve the soil as well. So if you improve your soil and then put wheat in it the next year, whatever your next crop is, it'll improve the quality of that crop. So they're part of sustainable agriculture, and they are affordable and help promote food security. So, and this is important, right, for food service operations to keep in under tight budgetary constraints, that pulses can help extend your budget, while providing a nutritious food. So just as an example, one serving of lentils costs about 10 cents versus around $1.50 or around 73 cents or 63 cents per serving for different animal protein sources. And last but not least, pulses are versatile. As I said, we've probably all been introduced to pulses in soups or chilies, and those are great ways to eat pulses. But I hope to inspire you today to look at pulses in a different way and maybe try out some other recipes, either in your schools or even at home. So you can see some of the ideas that we have and have used, and we've talked to school districts who do this type of thing, is they swap out half their meat in something like a taco or a sloppy joe and add pulses in there. So this example would be lentils. And the feedback I've received from food service directors doing this is that they're able to serve a bigger serving, and because of the fiber content in the pulses, it helps the students feel fuller longer. You can also serve them in smoothies, and it does count as the vegetable serving, a legume serving in the smoothie. And it might sound a little funny at first, but I'd encourage you to give it a try because it tastes really good. And if you start with something like a white bean, it'll be the most neutral flavor to start with. You can also add them to pastas, and there's actually pastas made with pulses right now, and at least one company has a CN label for pastas made entirely out of pulses. In that case, I believe it's lentils or chickpeas. So I'd like to say hello, pulses. And I'd like to show you how they fit into the dietary guidelines. So they are unique because, as I mentioned, they're high in fiber as well as vitamins, minerals, and protein. So they can be considered either a legume vegetable or a protein serving. And this is for 2,000 calories in the dietary guidelines, it's 1.5 cups per week is a recommendation. And then a quarter cup cooked is a 1 ounce meat equivalent. And then how that translates to the schools, it's the requirements for the legume subcategory of vegetables is 1/2 cup cooked per week, and with the minimum being 1/8 of a cup. That can be counted towards the meat alternate group. So part of what we do to increase awareness of what pulses are and how to eat them in different ways, and how to break down some of the barriers people have about eating them, mainly that they might be too hard to cook or they don't know what to do with them, is our campaign called Just Add Pulses, the 1/2 cup habit, which encourages people to eat 1/2 cup cooked pulses 3 times a week, or 1.5 cups per week, which is just in line with the dietary guidelines. And This graphic on the right showcases how you can just add them to different foods that you're eating, such as I mentioned, the smoothies, salads, soups, your wraps, your pastas, even egg dishes. And we have recipes for all these at pulses.org. Additionally, I want to give you a little bit of background on some of the origins of pulses. As I said, they've been incorporated in culinary traditions around the globe. And that makes sense if you see some of the origins of where they've come from. I don't have lentils on here, but you can see most of the beans, the dry beans, come from South America, and the black-eyed peas come from Africa, and chickpeas come from the Middle East, as well as lentils. So there's a rich culinary tradition, and we don't even have, you could put mung beans are much more popular in Asian cuisine, and azuki beans. So oftentimes throughout the course of civilization, human history, people have paired a pulse with a grain. And it's done because it's delicious, but it also has complementary amino acids, so they can boost the nutrition of that. So I'd encourage you to visit our website, pulses.org, and you can go to the international section as well, and you could see a huge variety of different ways that pulses are used throughout the world. So it'll be an interesting way to incorporate into any events you might have that are exploring global cuisine. So as I said, hello pulses, and I'd like to just encourage you to think about pulses in a different way. There's some of the culinary applications, and to help you get started cooking, you can visit our websites, cookingwithpulses.org and pulses.org. We have some recipes that are scaled for foods for school food service, and this is one of them, the roasted cauliflower and seasoned lentil taco, as well as we have resources on our website that were developed in Idaho and throughout the country to help people add more pulses to their menus. And one thing we were able to do for International Year of Pulses, which, yes, that was a thing, and it was in 2016, we did a culinary competition for students in middle school as well as high school called the Great School Lunch Contest, powered by Pulses. And they were charged to develop a menu that met all the school lunch requirements. So we encouraged them to pair up with the school nutrition professionals at their school and come up with a menu that had an entree that incorporated pulses, as well as a vegetable that incorporated pulses, because you can't count one dish as both a meat alternate and a legume vegetable, so they had to come up with two separate dishes. And they also came up with a marketing campaign of how they would market this to their peers. The finalists, the first round of finalists did a taste test with their schools, and then we brought the top 3 teams from the high school division to the Culinary Institute of America in San Antonio, where there was also the School Nutrition Association meeting that year, and they presented their final dishes. But I wanted to share with you the menus that they came up with. This was 4th graders from Heritage Middle School in Livingston, New Jersey. They created a pulse-nol pizza with supreme bean soup and served it with grapes and milk. And then you can see here's the recipe that they used, they came up with. And there's the picture of it. And then this is the 3rd place team from the high school division, remarkable chefs from West Salem High School in Oregon. And they created a burger, a muffin, and served it with raisins and carrot sticks and milk. And here's their recipe. So you can see they used mashed lentils in their muffin, and they used lentils in their burger as well. And that's a picture of how it might look. And then the 2nd place team, they're from Rhode Island, and they created an Aztec shepherd's pie, a Mexican salad bowl served with cantaloupe and and milk. And they were very creative in their recipe. You can see that in this In the Aztec shepherd's pie, it's gluten-free. And that was one of their inspirations, was creating a gluten-free product that was also high in protein. And there's a picture of it. And then the finalist team was from St. Louis, Rittenauer High School. And they created sweet chickpeas with rice, awesome egg rolls, pineapple, mandarin oranges, broccoli, and milk. And there they are with their dishes. And this is their recipe. It was very flavorful. It's really key for cooking with pulses is using a lot of different flavors. And pulses are flavor sponges, so it can suck up all kinds of different flavors from sweet to savory. And that's a picture of their dish. So I'd encourage you to, again, to join us, join a Half Cup Habit at pulses.org and get inspired to try pulses in different ways. We have recipes from breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, desserts, through beverages.
Thank you, Jessie, for presenting. This is Maggie Neola again from the Physicians Committee, and I'll discuss more of the health benefits of pulses. But before I do so, for listeners who have any questions, feel free to type those into the Q&A box, and we will address them at the very end. So as you can see in this image, there are a variety of pulses and even more not shown. Just like there are a variety of them, they also offer a huge variety of benefits. Yet most people don't eat them often enough, including children. So start to ask yourself these questions about your menu. Do you serve beans often? Why or why not? Which beans do you serve the most? If you find yourself not serving pulses often or only serving the same varieties, that you'd be inspired to broaden your choices and increase the frequency that you offer them. Many people don't know that pulses are superfoods that make our bodies strong and fit. So let's help change that together. To start us off, I'd like to show you an infographic we made here at the Physicians Committee, available for download on pcrm.org. This is a simple graphic that demonstrates how black beans cost 5 times less than ground beef and are more nutrient dense. They have less calories, less fat, no saturated fat, and no cholesterol. Unlike animal-based foods, they also have a huge dose of fiber. And lastly, the amount of iron is slightly higher than beef, which is a common misconception. Overall, pulses are not only rich in fiber and iron, but also calcium, zinc, B vitamins, and protein. Children and adults need these nutrients daily, making it clear that pulses are an easy way to help contribute to our nutrient needs. I can't stress enough the importance of adequate fiber intake as a whole, and children are just not getting enough of it. Beans and other pulses are some of the densest sources of fiber, making it easy to meet those daily needs. Fiber promotes healthy cholesterol levels, weight loss, steady blood glucose levels, growth of good gut flora, bowel regularity, and satiety. The next few slides, I will present a number of research studies that justify and give scientific credibility to the health benefits of eating pulses. In this meta-analysis published by the Canadian Medical Association, they conclude that adding just half a cup of beans a day to the diet can significantly reduce LDL, or bad cholesterol levels. Researchers analyzed data from 26 randomized controlled trials, which included over 1,000 participants, and found that LDL cholesterol dropped an average of 5% after consuming half a cup of beans per day, over an average of 6 weeks. They go on to suggest that adding beans to the diet can be a simple way to benefit heart health. With high cholesterol levels being seen even amongst teenagers now, imagine what would happen if kids started eating more beans, peas, and lentils. Encouraging consumption from a young age could help reduce the incidence of heart disease, which is the leading cause of death in America. Beans, peas, and other legumes increase satiety more than animal-based protein sources, according to research published online in Food and Nutrition Research. Researchers compared outcomes from 3 different meals, one high in animal protein, another high in plant-based protein, and one plant-based low-protein meal. Out of 43 participants, those who consumed the plant-based high-protein meal felt more satisfied while consuming fewer calories, compared with those who consumed the meal high in animal protein. Interestingly enough, the low-protein meal was as satiating and palatable as the animal-based high-protein meal. Researchers suspect high fiber intake as a possible mechanism behind this satiety. This study supports previous data on bean consumption and weight management. Beans, lentils, chickpeas, and other legumes aid weight management, according to a meta-analysis published online in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. Researchers reviewed 21 articles that encompass 940 overweight or obese participants on the effects of legume consumption on body weight, body fat, and waist circumference. A daily serving of beans resulted in about half a pound lost after 6 weeks, compared with those who did not consume a daily serving of legumes. Legumes are high in fiber and protein and increase satiety with fewer calories, making them a favorable option to address the growing childhood obesity epidemic we are seeing in this country. Replacing meat with plant protein improves glycemic control in people with diabetes, according to a meta-analysis published in Nutrients. Researchers reviewed 13 randomized control trials encompassing 280 people on the effects of plant protein in place of animal protein on hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of blood sugar control over time, including fasting glucose and insulin levels. So those who replaced approximately 35% of animal protein with plant protein per day reduced their hemoglobin A1C, fasting glucose, and fasting insulin levels. Compared to meat, protein-rich plant-based proteins are typically lower in fat, plus they have fiber, making them extremely effective at restoring insulin function. The rise of prediabetes and type 2 diabetes in childhood is alarming and can be improved with building a diet made up of low-fat, high-fiber, plant-based foods. This includes pulses in addition to fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Another recent note on diabetes management is from Dr. Michael Greger's video, where he describes the lentil effect. It details the remarkable effect of beans to help control blood sugar levels hours later after consumption. In short, the byproducts beans release in our gut promote a state of symbiosis or harmony, and this chain reaction naturally lowers the rate at which sugar is released into your blood, even for meals consumed 11 to 14 hours later. Definitely visit nutritionfacts.org to watch this intriguing video. So not only do pulses have amazing benefits, but often they are cooked with other herbs, spices, fruits, grains, and veggies, which are also nutrient dense. So on this slide are just a few complementary combinations that will taste good and boost the nutrition content of your menu item. The options are truly endless and exciting to explore. Now I will turn it over to Denise Agati and Amy Hamlin to present the remaining objectives.
Hi, thank you, Maggie and Jesse, and I'm here, school lunch director since 2010, and incorporating the beans and legumes into our menus and showing that it proves a delicious and other option of a meal for protein or meat alternate. Legumes are practical and appealing ideas for incorporating them to meet the USDA meat alternate standards. For an elementary student, it's a 1 ounce. 1 ounce equals a quarter of a cup. And for the elementary students, we have to incorporate 8 to 10 ounces of protein or meat alternate a week. So generally across the board, we incorporate when we serve. We work with the 2 ounce equivalents each day or each time with a half a cup of beans to make sure they're meeting the guidelines. Okay, some of the challenges that we have had with changing up the menu a little bit and putting it onto the menu, it was educating because students were not used to, at their homes, they were used to more processed foods. Not everybody, but a lot of them out there. So we started, it was an educating experience. We're not only educating the students, we had to get on board it's an ongoing process, getting the staff to be educated about it, parents, and even staff throughout the district and cafeteria staff. To address some of these challenges after educating and training the students and adults, exposure is a big thing. So we have done, and we try to do repetitive over and over again on the menu of different recipes and just repeating so they're exposed to it. The menu repetition over and over again. We've tried different ways of approaching it. We tried the most popular and keep it on there so that they're multiple taste testing. We've tried taste testing out in the cafeteria, and we found it more successful when they're actually taste testing right before they reach the serving line, so they know what it tastes at that moment, because it's different, and so this way they have a chance to taste it before they actually get to the serving line. Some of the things we've done to increase the participation of the meat alternates recipes, specific announcements, putting signs up. We cooking classes where we've trained students where they actually cooking these recipes that are going on the school on the menus, so that they're exposed to it. Adult encouragement, and even we've done the cooking classes and sent the ingredients home to the families so that the families are exposed to it. Working with, and one of the big things that we can make a lot of this happen, we work with Coalition for Healthy School Food, working with a nonprofit partner, which helped us tremendously to accomplish to make these things happen. So that's back to partnering with a nonprofit, and it inspired us to use beans as a meat alternate through a partner with the partnership. So we have a lot of entrees on our menu, which are totally plant-based. We do have gluten-free. We try because everybody different needs. We're in a big community. We started using USDA foods with the legumes. We purchased from a local farmer when we started off with all these entrees. We started with the black beans. They actually were a local organic bean from our area, Caroline, close to Ithaca, New York, and they had them processed into our frozen product. So there's different ways that you could purchase. We cook beans from scratch, dry beans. We've used them from a can depending on how we our access to it. Some of the benefits, we were working, try to work farm to school with local farmers in the area. The beans are plant-based protein, very healthy, supporting the local economy, taste foods from around the world, and exposure to more parents and having children participate in school lunches. Now I'm going to turn this over to Amy.
Hello, this is Amy Hamlin. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Healthy School Food, and we are thrilled to be in partnership with the Ithaca City School District, also the New York City Schools, and the Southern Cayuga Central School District. So we partner with 3 different school districts. We develop plant-based entrees, which are legume and pulse-based, and we create resources that other schools can use. So we can help schools get more plant-based entrees on their menus, and if you are interested in speaking with us, then you can see the phone number and the email address at the bottom of this slide. But first, what I want to talk about is our school food program is really what we call it, and it's a farm-to-school program that uses, whenever possible, local beans. But if it's not possible, it's fine to use non-local beans or canned beans. However you can get them, they are really healthy. What we did is we created recipes from around the world. Focusing on different cultures helps promote diversity, and that's a goal that all schools have. We called these entrees plant-powered entrees from around the world. And although we don't do this here, you could feature a day of the week called World Food Day. That would be one way to offer these recipes. And we have recipes on our website that already meet the meat alternate standards, and they're kid tested. So they are at our website at healthyschoolfood.org/recipes.htm. We have the plenty of recipes there. We also have family-size recipes so that you can make these recipes at home. The other thing we're finding with these recipes is a lot more teachers are eating lunch on Thursdays. These recipes are offered several times a week, but always on Thursdays. So we do find more people eating lunch on Thursdays, including teachers and other staff. Another favorite recipe is pasta fagioli, and this is really just pasta with white beans and kale and tomato sauce. You know, any of these recipes could be served as the vegetable legume side dish, but it's our intention for them to be served as a main dish. We were excited that our program was featured as the first farm-to-school partnership that focuses on plant-based protein in the country by the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy. So this our program got national attention. We're really excited about that. Now, Denise is going to talk for a minute.
Yes. So basically what Amy is saying, some of the things that we've been adding to our menu is that if we are doing burgers on the menu, we try to make an alternate of a plant-based entree. So we'll do a bean burger. For chili, we could actually incorporate, without using the meat, we could use a meat alternative of using the half cup of beans. We always serve, when we have tacos, meat taco, we always serve a bean burrito. So they have options out there. And even with the pasta, instead of, that would be like the pasta fagioli, instead of using a meat into your sauce, you can use a bean. Also, by using beans, I mean, it saves you saving a lot of money because it's a lot cheaper than 1/3 or 1/4 of the cost of adding a bean as a protein to your entree instead of a meat.
If we could just go back a minute to the cost slide, I just wanted to emphasize, I want to emphasize what Denise is saying, that the beans cost far less than meat. And then if you're looking at beans, the dry ones are even far less than the canned ones. So the canned ones are still they're very reasonably priced at 16 cents a serving approximately, but then the dry beans are approximately 6 cents a serving. Of course, you're spending a little bit more on labor, but it's still a pretty easy process. So the beans cost a lot less than the meat, and then the dry beans cost a lot less than the canned beans. Next. A group called Friends of the Earth did a pilot program that looked at a school in Oakland, California, and they had reduced their purchases of animal products by 30%, replacing those with more plant proteins like beans and lentils, and also just more fruits and vegetables. And what they found was doing that for 1 year, a 30% reduction of animal products, replacing it with pulses, reduced the greenhouse gas equivalent emissions, equivalent to driving 1.5 million miles less per year, just by reducing animal products by 30% in the school district. It was also like the equivalent of saving 42 million gallons of water, which would be the equivalent of 2.3 million fewer showers. And in addition, not only did it result in this less greenhouse gas emissions, but the school district actually saved $42,000 by decreasing the cost of each meal by 1%.
It could be hard to get beans on the Commodity or USDA foods because we team up with a lot of area directors, so everybody has to pretty much be on the same page so we could join together to put this on a menu. But that's where using beans to offset other proteins that we collect in from the USDA foods and the commodities, we could, it's cheaper to buy the beans right from the bids.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the best practices for increasing participation for staff, students, and parents with the menu changes. First, we have found that it is really important to get all the adults on board, because when all the adults are on board, the students are too. So this includes everyone. What we call the whole school community means not only the students, but the teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, food service staff, all other staff, including the custodians. And we do teacher professional development, which includes the paraprofessionals and administrators. We do parent workshops and food service personnel trainings. We focus on how healthy plant-based foods benefit the adults, because once the adults care about it, then they get it, and then they want to promote it more for the kids. So in some of our activities we did with the food service personnel was to let them do an activity that lets them figure out how to best promote these entrees, and we let them come up with the answers themselves, so they felt much more empowered. The pictures in this slide are just different activities. Like one was a whole 5th grade class prepared dinner for their parents with one of our school food entrees. And in the slide on the right, our high school cooking class prepared samples for all the teachers at a teacher meeting. So how do we promote the recipe? Well, we hang the posters and the flyers and also the serving line signs. We use recipe-specific announcements, and we ask the teachers to remind students right before lunch. This is really only in elementary school. We don't ask middle and high school teachers to do that. And in the next few slides, we'll address taste testing in the line. When the students taste test in the line right before they order what they're having for lunch, the number of students taking the Cool School Food entree dramatically increases. And if for any reason the recipe does not come out looking or tasting delicious, be prepared to cancel the taste testing. You can't promote something that doesn't look or taste good. Next, figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. What we find in the taste testings on the line is we don't ask students if they want to taste it, because when you ask the question, the answer is often no. So we make it simple. We say, today we are tasting Ms. Patel's Rajma, and we're handing them the spoon. Follow up with saying, if you like it, you can get it for lunch today. Of course, if they refuse, they should be respected, because you shouldn't be pushy either with the students. This is a picture of the Ithaca City School District menu. This is actually last March. This is actually a year and a half ago. If you pre-plate the meat alternates, pre-plate equal numbers of each. So for example, if you have hamburgers and then awesome bean burgers, and you're putting out 10 trays already filled, do half of each. Because if you only pre-plate a couple of the pulse-based entrees, while you pre-plate a lot of the others, the message is clear. You have to taste this or like it. So also place the Cool School Food entree first, so students see it first when they approach the line. And you could put something else delicious and appealing on the tray, like a couple of strawberries that aren't available with the other choices. You do need to watch. This isn't the only reason the students are taking it. You have to see that they are, in fact, eating the meat alternate also. And then you can also use our serving line sign. We also offer the after-school cooking classes where they cook the foods that are available at lunch, not the actual ones that are served at lunch, but they make this in the after-school class, then they eat it. And they learn about the different plant foods. They're in the picture sitting on the floor looking at our feel-good food cards, which educate them about the different foods. We also expose them to lots of different herbal teas that don't contain any caffeine and let them learn about those as a healthier option for a beverage. We have several resources. One is called Wellness Wake Up Call, which is nutrition education one sound bite at a time. And it's written by registered dietitians and read over the PA system in schools each day. And it's heard by over 100,000 school students every day, and it's used around the country. So you can go on our website, healthyschoolfood.org, to learn more about that. And we have all the plant food categories covered. So we've got legumes, which includes all the pulses, and we have vegetables, fruits, grains, nuts and seeds. We also have herbs and spices and mushrooms as well.
Thank you, Amy and Denise, for for sharing your stories and your partnership, and Jesse also for talking about Pulses in the beginning. Thank you to those who are listening. In just a minute, we'll begin to answer questions for the panel. To add your question, simply type it into the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. So go ahead and start putting those in there. We do have one already, but before we start answering those, I want to mention that if you are looking to get continuing education credit for this webinar, those who register for this webinar will receive an email with the certificate. And if you're listening to this as a recording and not live, then you'll want to email the inbox listed on the slide, the healthyschoolunches@pcrm.org, to ask for the certificate to be sent to you. And lastly, the USA Pulses has donated these awesome half cups pictured here to anyone who fills out the survey evaluation before 2018. So be sure to complete that survey in order to give us your feedback and get a really fun measuring cup that will encourage you to eat your pulses. Definitely check that one out. So let's move on to our first question. And remember, to ask more questions, simply type them into the question box on the right side of your screen. So the first one that we have is about accessing these slides after the webinar. Yes, they will be available on healthyschoolunches.org, which is affiliated with the Physicians Committee. So you'll be able to listen to this recording and access any of the slides that you wanted to revisit. And you can definitely stay in communication with us for further questions as well. So we don't have any current questions in this box here. If there's anything else that the speakers wanted to share before we close out, you're welcome to. Go ahead, Amy.
I just thought it might be helpful to know a few of the statistics about children's health and the diet-related diseases that we often share with people. And sometimes people really don't understand just how bad the situation is, that, you know, a third of kids are either overweight or obese, that 50% of kids between the ages of 2 and 15 already have fatty streaks in their arteries, and this is literally early-stage heart disease. Mm-hmm. And that children as young as 8 years old are already being prescribed blood pressure and cholesterol-lowering medications, which have very serious side effects, and there's no reason for children to be on those, meaning the reasons they're on them are completely preventable. In relation to diabetes, 33% of all children in the U.S. and 40 to 53% of African American and Latino children will get type 2 diabetes at some point in their lives, and this is also almost 100% preventable. And at least 35% of cancers are caused by diet. And one of the most important things in relation to schools is that we know for sure that the processed meats cause cancer.
I could add something for the...
I was just going to say that it would include things like hot dogs and sausage and pepperoni and deli meats, things like that. We know those things cause cancer. So I just want to add that for all of those reasons I just said, that adding more pulse-based, legume-based, meat alternate recipes really helps kids develop new tastes and gives them something healthier, keeps them full, and it's just very, very healthy.
Thank you so much for adding that, Amy. It's really helpful to reiterate the rising health statistics in our country with our children. So thank you for
I could add something from the children's point of view. I mean, really, they do love, working with the kids in the lunch lines and working with them with the cooking classes and working with them. They love the education part of it. They love being involved. They think the taste testing is a lot of fun. And a lot of it is peer pressure too. So we'll find that letting them taste through the line, if you get one child excited, it's almost like a domino effect. Then they all start getting excited about the entrees, and they're willing to try it. And that's where all the education of working with the students is really important.
Great. Thanks, Denise. Jesse, any closing thoughts for you specifically?
No, I would just reiterate what people have said here about how healthy and nutritious and delicious pulses are and how really underutilized they are. People don't think of them often beyond soup. So I hope you've been inspired to to look at pulses in a different way and start using some of these best practices. And again, if you are interested in any resources we have, pulses.org is where you can go.
Great. Thank you so much to all of you for speaking today. If you need to get in touch with any of us, for any of your questions were not answered, please feel free to email, and we will answer all of your questions at that time. But with that, we will come to a close, and have a great day. Thank you for listening.